Hi guys and welcome to Dial It Up, and today's episode we are going to be going over the Avengers Roundtable. Now courtesy of our local venue, Comic Warehouse, we managed to take these home early so that we could do a set of videos on them for you guys. So we're going to break down on how to use this. Now I know that WizKids already put up their introduction to the Roundtable video, but even going over that, even as simple as going over the card, there's a lot they actually didn't go over. So I'm going to do a breakdown like I normally do with all of my resource explanation videos. So to start it off, force construction. Avengers Roundtable costs 5 points. Up to 6 distinct ID cards may be attached to this resource by paying their cost. ID cards may not be included on your force in other ways. So the table itself, 5 points. Each card that you're going to be putting into the slots, 5 points, because the cards themselves at this moment all cost 5 points. And then each of them have to be distinct. So you can't have a full table of Iron Man or Captain America. You got to have 6 different Avengers attached to this. And then on top of that is that you can't add ID cards to your force that aren't a part of this table. So you have to fill this up. It's kind of like the relic and resource rule, but only specific to the ID cards and this round table. So unfortunately, if you have Jarvis on your force, he's not going to be giving you those 3 ID cards for free. Setup. ID cards are attached to the resource starting with the ID slot number 1 and filling each slot incrementally. Each ID slot with an attached ID card during force construction is called an active slot, even if the ID card has been removed. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but there are ways to actually remove the cards from this. So starting off is that you actually have to put it within slot 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. You can't just put it in whatever slots you want to, kind of like the power battery where you're just like, all right, I have constructs on my power battery. This one you actually have to start at slot 1 and continue along until all of them are filled, or up until how many you actually want to attach. And then each one that is attached during force construction, that slot is considered active. Now there are powers later on that we're going to explain that call out specifically active slots. Clicking the dial. When you remove an ID card from this resource using its call-in help ability, you may roll a d6 and turn the resource dial clockwise that many times. When a friendly character takes damage from an opposing character's attack, after actions resolve, turn this resource dial once clockwise and then turn it a second time if the damage assigned to that character was 3 or more. This resource dial can't be clicked beyond 25. Click number 25. So breaking that down, when you remove, you can actually remove the cards like you normally would do to use an ID card as if it was part of your force where you call in a character from your sideline. You can do that. When you do that, you're going to actually physically remove the card. Normally you would have them all just kind of set up in their slots. If you're going to use their call-in ability, you're actually going to take it off and remove it from the slot and then use their call-in help ability. And then when you do that, you're going to roll a d6, and then whatever shows up on the die, that's how many times you actually click the dial to get that dial moving. The next way to change this dial to click it along is when one of your characters takes damage. Now, that is damage from an opposing character's attack. So stuff like poison, mystic, stuff that isn't considered an attack isn't going to cause your round table to move. But anytime you are attacked and damaged from an opponent, you're going to click it. And then if you take 3 or more damage, you're going to click it 1 more time. And then also, you can't click it past its final one. So this isn't a resource that's going to spin like the Book of Skulls or the Infinite Gauntlet used to. Once you get to click number 25, it's just going to stop clicking, which is the final click on the actual dial. Scoring. Each time an ID card is removed from this resource, your opponent scores that ID card. The base cost of this resource is scored if no ID cards are attached. This resource and any attached ID cards are scored if all friendly characters have been KO'd. So like I was saying, when you just actually remove the card and use it in its call and help ability like you would if you had it attached to your force normally, each time your opponent's going to score for that. So that's 5 points to them just for calling in your person. And then if your round table doesn't have any cards attached to it, they're going to be scoring 5 points for the round table. Now, specifically right now, it doesn't say that the round table is removed from the game once it no longer has any cards on it. There is an ability that we'll get into later on where you can actually bring cards back onto the round table. So unfortunately at the moment, the rules team is busy with Worlds coming up this weekend, so they haven't answered my question on this. Once I do get a definitive answer, I'll put it down below. We'll have little annotations here to let you guys know the actual wording on that or the specific clarification on that. But as it stands right now, you're gonna give 5 points to your opponent if there's no ID cards on there, but it's still gonna be an active resource and you're still gonna be able to fill it back up based on the powers that we're gonna get into. So the first trait, and we've already spoken about this, is I can help right now, and that is you may reuse any attached ID cards call and help ability. So you can actually use it. There's no specification as to which one you use. You just get to choose which one, and then you follow all of the rules that you would for calling in an ID card character from there. The second trait, I'm better suited for these foes. After revealing your force, but before placing characters in your starting area, you may replace a friendly character on your force with an ID character of equal or less points from your sideline. That character is no longer an ID character and its ID card is removed from this resource. This is really big. This is a big strategy that goes into this. Jason will get into that when he does his Metafix episode on this. But just to break that down as to what you're doing is that in between there's steps when you first start up the game. A lot of people just kind of go because we're used to doing this, but there is actually a step-by-step process of what you're supposed to do when you start up a game. And when you reveal your force before placing it on the map, you get to look at what your opponent's force looks like. And with this ability, you can look at their force and be like, you know what, I have someone on my sideline that's probably a lot better suited for this match. So I'm going to take out one of my guys that's either equal or more points and then bring in that sideline character that I had set up for this resource and field him instead. And then from there you get to remove the corresponding ID card that he would have had in the resource, so you no longer have access to that call and help ability or that inspiration ability. Instead, you just full-fledged, that guy is now on your force. The guy that was originally on your force is just put aside. He's not going to get scored. You're just swapping him out, and then you continue on with just one less character on your resource. So the final trait is call in the reservists. At the beginning of your turn, if a parachute number is revealed and that slot is active and empty, you may place an ID card that was removed because you used its call and help ability into that slot. If you do, turn this resource's dial once clockwise. So on the bottom of the resource, the actually only thing in its symbol slot is a little parachute, and that's going to be the number where you would normally have the damage number. And it doesn't show up very often, but every now and then you'll actually get a number show up in that damage slot, and that is what active slot you're going to be looking at. So right now I just clicked it to number 2. So if this was empty, if I had paid points to have this slot active, and then I had used the ID card for that slot, it's now sitting empty. I am now able to take that ID card that I had used and put it back onto my resource. And then doing that is going to click it once clockwise, which will actually take it off of that click. The 1 to 6 for doing this call and reservist ability actually only ever shows up once on the dial. So don't worry if you feel like you're going to miss it. You won't. You'll see it when it comes up. There are also special powers that are going to show up on this dial. So the first one, number 1, it's right from the very start, the first click, you're showing number 1. And that is lending moral support. At the beginning of your turn, you may choose a friendly character and roll a d6. Until your next turn, that character can use the inspiration of the ID card in that ID slot. So it's kind of like empowering with the serpent from the Book of Skulls. You pick a character and then roll a d6 whichever slot number, you go to the chair. It's actually these really cute little chairs. They're on here. You go to the slot number, and that is the inspiration that character is now using for that turn. And you get to use that power until the end of the turn. So right now I have Black Widow sitting in here. Her inspiration is that you get to modify your attack value by +1. So if you had, she's in slot 2. If I had rolled a 2 on my d6, I get Black Widow. That character now has +1 to their attack for the end of the turn. Okay, and the next one, the number 2, when that shows up, I can't get there, but I can advise. At the beginning of your turn, you may choose an ID card attached to this resource that you didn't choose last turn. Until your next turn, friendly characters can use the inspiration of that card. So it's kind of like the upgraded version of the number 1, whereas before it was a random dice roll. Now you actually get to actively choose which inspiration you want. And not only is it just this one select character, now your entire force is going to get that inspiration in there. So say we've got Hawkeye here, and his is modify value, range value by +2. So we put him in, I've got that showing. I'm going to choose Hawkeye. This turn, all of my characters modify their range value by +2. Next turn, number 2 is still showing, but I can't pick the same power twice, so now I'm going to move over to Black Widow, and now everybody has +1 to their attack. Pretty cool once you get to that one. Now the final power that's on the Avengers round table is Avengers Assemble. At the beginning of your turn, give any number of friendly characters power actions. For each one given, remove an ID character attached to this resource and place its ID character adjacent to the character given the action. This game, that character is no longer an ID character, can't ignore pushing damage, and returns to your sideline when it takes damage. So this is pretty cool. It's pretty big, but it only shows up on the final click. But when this does show up, at the beginning of your turn, give a character a power action, take an ID character from your sideline, bring him in, he's now part of your force. He's no longer under any of the stipulation of ID characters, and we'll go over that more specifically in another episode. But now he's part of your force, can't ignore pushing damage, so even if he has quintessence, willpower, indomitable, he's not allowed to use those. So if you're going to push him, he has to take pushing damage. And then that character will go back to your sideline once they do take damage. Now, it's not specified as to what type of damage. It's just as soon as they take damage, they go back to your sideline. Now, the one thing to point out on that is that it says that they return to your sideline. So even if, it says that they go back to your sideline. So your opponent isn't scoring for these characters. Unless, of course, they do get KO'd in that fact of that they're going to get damaged, then they should be scored. That's probably going to have to get investigated. Again, if that does, I will put you guys down below once we can actually get in contact with the rules team on that. But basically, put out a whole bunch of power actions. All of your 6 characters that are on here, if there are still on here, all get to go on the field. Extra attackers, extra whatever, boom, Avengers win the day. So that was the Avengers Roundtable. If there's anything you guys think I didn't go over, any questions, comments, concerns, down below, and we'll see you next time for another episode of that.
Married with Clicks is brought to you by Majestic's Heroclix sales down in Costa Mesa, California. Right now, they're in the middle of storefront change. In the meantime, don't forget to check out their eBay store. If you check the link down below, they always have great Heroclix stuff at fantastic prices, and they'll ship just about anywhere.